Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
And now to the UK. Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess has died after being stabbed multiple times during a meeting with constituents. Sir David represented South and West for many years and was previously the MP for a town in England. NTD's Jane Werrell brings us more.
Conservative MP Sir David Amess was stabbed multiple times at around midday today. Medics tried to save him where he was stabbed in a church in Essex where he was meeting constituents, but he died. The 69-year-old leaves behind his wife and 5 children, and he served as an MP for 38 years. Essex police say a 25-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder, and they've recovered a knife on the scene. They're not looking for anyone else connected with the incident. Sir David was killed in Lee-on-Sea, a small seaside village in Essex, where he was meeting constituents. The attack has come not just as a shock for the local community, but also for the Parliament, bringing memories of the murder of Joe Cox, a Labour MP, in 2016. Tributes have been pouring in from MPs, including from the Prime Minister.
David was a man who believed passionately in this country and in its future. And we've lost today a fine public servant and a much-loved friend and colleague. And our thoughts are very much today with his wife, his children and his family.
Flags at Downing Street have been lowered at half-mast as a sign of respect. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
A conservative grassroots organization is calling on U.S. lawmakers to address the Chinese Communist Party's forced organ harvesting atrocities. NTD's Cynthia spoke with the president of its Solano County chapter to hear why he believes the U.S. needs to hold the CCP accountable.
The National Federation of Republican Assemblies passed a resolution on October 9th condemning the Chinese Communist Party's organ harvesting. Norman Reese submitted the resolution. He is calling for an immediate end to the persecution of Falun Gong and forced organ harvesting. Reese shared how he first learned of the issue in 2016 after meeting 2 Falun Dafa practitioners.
And from meeting them, I found out we became friends, and then I found out about Falun Gong. Dafa and Falun Gong relationship and the human harvesting.
Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice composed of meditative exercises and based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. After the discipline was introduced in China in 1992, the Chinese regime launched a persecution campaign in 1999 to eliminate the practice.
And one of the first things Rachel asked me if I knew a place that they could put a display on for the atrocities going on in China.
Since 1999, millions of adherents have been detained in labor camps, tortured, and killed for their organs for sale, according to the Falun Dafa Information Center.
When I heard about the harvesting of organs against people's will and all, it was repugnant to me. So, and then personally knowing Maggie and Rachel, in a personal way, it really personalized it even more so.
Reese explained that such atrocities are a fundamental violation of human rights.
And the fact that they're not open to investigation and allowing people to, they say one thing, but they say, can we come in and investigate? And the very fact they won't let that happen makes it very suspect.
Reese says raising awareness is important, but not enough. He hopes U.S. Congress members can pass resolutions and laws to hold the CCP accountable.
But it isn't going to solve the problem until people take action in a legal way to say, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you don't open up and let us investigate, we're going to cut off make certain sanctions.
He says sanctions may cost the U.S. in trade, but lawmakers need to take a stance if they are to address the CCP's persecution and organ harvesting of religious groups. Cynthia NTD News, California.
Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller was sentenced. The judge docked $5,000 of Scheller's pay, and he will receive a letter of reprimand for criticizing how military leaders handled the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Scheller's attorney says he thinks the sentencing was fair. The Secretary of the Navy will decide if Scheller will receive an honorable discharge or a general discharge under honorable conditions. An NBA player has chosen not to receive the vaccine. This means he won't be allowed to play because of local vaccine mandates. We hear reactions from fans. Some of them respect his decision and some are disappointed.
Kyrie Irving is a guard for the Brooklyn Nets, and he's not playing because he chose not to be vaccinated. That's because his team has to abide by New York City's vaccine mandates. The Nets had a preseason game at the Barclays Center on Thursday, and fans who attended needed to show proof of vaccination before they could go in. Many of them supported Irving's decision not to get the shot.
His body, his choice. I mean, it's nothing wrong with how he feels. If he don't want to get it, he don't want to get it. But I feel like it's kind of wrong that they're forcing him to get it just so he can play. But, hey, I support Kyrie's decision 100%.
Irving indicated on social media that he knows the financial implications of his decision and its impact on his career, but that he's willing to stand up for the things he believes in. Another fan says it's a personal decision.
I think that this whole situation has become very political. However, it is an individual thing. Each individual has the right to determine what's best for him and his family.
The player's decision to not get the vaccine prevents him from playing or practicing in New York City, and now the team is benching him because they don't want him to be a part-time player for away games. This, while another fan says they respect his decision and they hope to see him play soon.
Well, we're really disappointed that Kyrie's not playing. He's such a talented guy to watch on the court, and the fans are really going to miss that. Society's going to miss that. But he has decided to take a stand, and we respect that.
But what's at stake if the guard doesn't play this season? $17 million. That's the amount of pay he'll lose for not playing the games that he would have played in Brooklyn and Madison Square Garden.
The U.S. Army Secretary says America's military is at a strategic crossroads. The biggest threat comes from China, and the Chinese and Russian militaries are holding joint drills. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
In a speech this week, the U.S. Army Secretary said America's military must ask itself hard questions and is now at a strategic crossroads. Secretary of the Army Christine Wormuth said the U.S. still faces an array of challenges from Russia, North Korea, and others. But, quote, one pacing challenge stands out above all, China, and we must transform to meet that challenge. Wormuth asks the Army to update their thinking about military conflict with China. It could come to more than just exchanging long-range missiles.
She said if the U.S. fails to deter either China or Russia, quote, we could even face attacks here on the United States itself.
Wormuth says in the past 2 decades, while the U.S. was busy dealing with terrorists, China and Russia went to school on the American way of war. They modernized their military and built advanced space, cyber, and disinformation capabilities. She says that's why the U.S. Army needs to seriously consider how to face these challenges. A loophole in Beijing's air defense strategy. That's according to the head of Taiwan's China affairs body. In a business conference on Thursday, the agency's head, Qing Tai-sen, broke the news of a secret visit from the U.S. Air Force to China. He says 2 U.S. fighter jets had flown close enough to China that they could have launched missiles at the country's coastal airfields, but China was totally unaware of it. That's because Chinese aircraft were busy intruding in Taiwan's southwestern airspace. Earlier this month, a record 149 Chinese military jets crossed into Taiwan's air defense zone, just as Beijing commemorated the founding of its communist regime. Chiu says the move was to counter the Malabar exercises starting on Tuesday. Naval forces from the U.S., Britain, Japan, Australia, and others held a joint drill in southeast Taiwan waters to counter China. Chiu says China's military presence near Taiwan has become a warlike situation.
New York's a hub, a bastion, and a sanctuary for immigrants. And the state's governor recently signed a bill into law that's supposed to shield them from coercion. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on what this means.
New York's coercion laws have been updated. In a statement, Governor Kathy Hochul said the new law will protect New Yorkers from bad actors who use extortion or coercion due to their immigration status. Criminal attorney Elizabeth Crotty tells me this expansion will make it clear to prosecutors that this is a crime.
So how does this new law that Governor Hochul passed change the old law?
Well, it doesn't actually change the law at all. What it does is it expands the law. So they're under two theories of prosecution. One under coercion. There's 10 different ways that you can have coercion, 9 different ways currently that you can have coercion as per the statute. This is the 10th way that you can have coercion. So compelling a person to turn over property or being compelled to act because somebody's going to say, if you don't do what I ask you to do or do what I say you do, I'm going to out your immigration status. So that can be part of the coercion.
But could people freely coerce illegal immigrants in this way before without criminal consequences? The law currently says a person is guilty of coercion if they tie their demand with a threat to accuse some person of a crime.
So you could maybe make it out, but I think that this explicitly spells it out. I mean, I think, these cases are how crimes are charged to cases are very fact specific. And I think before you had you could kind of probably make out a coercion or you could kind of make out a grand larceny, but it was tangential, and I think now it makes it very explicit.
The law takes effect in a few weeks. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
And starting November 8th, visitors from any country can enter the U.S., but they must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. This applies to both air and travel and land and sea crossings from Mexico and Canada. White House Assistant Press Secretary Kevin Munoz says this policy is guided by public health, stringent and consistent. But he did not elaborate on travel restrictions for children who are not eligible for the vaccines. The Trump administration put a travel ban on certain countries at the beginning of the pandemic. Foreigners traveling from 33 countries, including China and most European nations, are currently not allowed to enter the U.S. The U.S. also banned non-essential travel across land and sea borders with Mexico and Canada in March of last year. After over a year and a half, the land and sea crossings will be open to fully vaccinated travelers as well. Every year, billions of tons of food are being rejected by retailers and wasted at farms. The food is usually dumped in landfills, creating environmental problems. But a growing number of charities are tackling the supply chain to stop good food from being thrown away and finding ways to get it to the needy. We hear from Fair Share, who say last year they saved 132 million meals from being wasted. NTD's Eddie Aitken brings us this report.
Early every morning, Fair Share volunteers busily unpack groceries. They take unwanted food from retailers and farmers, sending it to charities that help the nation's poorest. Supermarkets reject farm produce if it's strangely shaped or wrongly packaged. The cheapest option is often sending it to landfill.
Now we have the capacity to take that food from the supermarkets. They don't really want to deal with many others in the sector. They haven't got time. They want to get it out to people as quickly as possible, and we're able to do that. It comes into warehouses like this. It's resorted and then put onto new pallets, as you'll see, and then sent out to those charities in need.
Fair Share says it redistributed 55 tons of food last year. That's 132 million meals. 25 centres in the UK supply over 10,000 charities. Thompson says 2 billion tonnes of food is wasted every year, mostly at farms. Fair Share can make redistributing the food cost-effective for the supplier.
We help them cover the costs through our surplus of purpose scheme to make sure that it's cost-effective for them to redistribute that food through us rather than to send it to landfill, to let it go to waste or rot in the ground.
One of the charities Fair Share works with is Brighton Food Bank, run by Mike Jourdain. Since the pandemic started, he has seen more people in need, but less food donations, particularly due to the churches not congregating.
We've seen a 38% increase this year post-COVID, so we've got great demand. So we're looking after about 120 people in a week. We're giving them 3 weeks of food, so this will be empty probably by tomorrow.
Fair Share has also seen difficulties, rising fuel costs and lack of lorry drivers, so they are trialling electric tricycles. Volunteers can peddle hundreds of kilos of food into congested areas. With the COP26 climate conference round the corner, Fair Share hopes the topic of food waste will be on the menu. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
There's reporting that can be trusted. There are programs that can inspire every generation. There is a television network worth watching and sharing. Our commitment is to bring you the facts and to show you the world. We won't be divided by politics, and we won't be swayed by the dollar. We believe in the strength of our nation and the hope in our shared humanity. We are NTD Television, and we are proud to bring you news you can trust and programs that make you smile. NTD Television, news you can trust.